many people who said they liked me and, were lukewarm on the Democrat when asked who they were going to vote for, said they were going to vote for the Democrat. And I heard that in a lot of places that I went. In fact, I was at a meeting, a YPO meeting in Wichita, and one guy said to me, look, Greg, if I could pick the governor, it would be you. But I'm so concerned that Kobach's going to get elected that I think I have to vote for Laura Kelly. And another guy sitting at the same table said, Greg, if I could pick the governor, it would be you. But I'm so concerned that Laura Kelly's going to get elected. I really feel like I have to vote for Chris Kobach. And what I said to both of them was, well, why don't you just both agree to vote for me and you'll cancel out the other concern? But that was something that was on the minds of so many people, was they were really primarily concerned about Chris Kobach getting elected. He was, part of Donald Trump's sort of immigration team.
Yeah, we've all seen the movie before, man. It's like, oh, snap. I really have to make sure that this person I'm very, very scared of or hate does not win. And so I will vote with the blue team or the red team, because that's the way most voters are trained. And they're also trained, to your point, that an independent candidate can't win and that you're wasting your vote by giving it to
yeah. Well, let's explore that one a little bit, because, I've heard that wasted vote argument from the press often. And what I like to say to people is, how many people in this country have been struck by lightning more than once? The answer is over a dozen. And how many people have won multi-million-dollar lottery prizes more than once? The answer is, about a dozen. How many people have had their vote decide the outcome of a statewide election?
Zero.
In the United States? It's zero. In the history of America, there's only been one statewide race. It was about 180 years ago, decided by a single vote. So the reality is your individual vote is not going to decide the outcome of any race. It doesn't mean it's not important. It is important, but it's important because it's an expression of who you are and what you value. And we spend so much time voting trying to minimize our maximum regret. And so we vote for candidates, or we really more precisely, we vote against candidates we hate and we fear, instead of voting for candidates we love or who inspire us or who have policies that align with us. And if you think about the implications of that, what that means is to get elected, I don't need to improve your life. I don't need to do things to improve our country. I don't even need to enact the promises I make when I'm running as a candidate. All I need to do is make you afraid of my opponent. And that's a bridge to nowhere. And that's why, again, I think we've got such a difficult time.
It is a straw man, because the fact is 90% of votes are wasted right now because you're voting in something that's a foregone conclusion in terms of the general elections of 90% of our members of Congress. I mean, it's a clearly blue zone or red zone. And so they've already gamed it out, and then they go vote, vote, vote. But the truth is, they already know who's going to win the general because they've gerrymandered the crap out of 90% of the races.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's like theater. Like, we're all being sold. It's like, oh, vote, vote, vote. But if there's anything both parties can agree on, is to avoid competition whenever possible. So they're like, you take that zone, I take this zone, and then we'll pretend to fight about this or that.
It's the WWE. I believe that entirely. I've written an article about that. Two comments on that. First, we never hear the media saying to Biden voters in Alabama, you're wasting your vote. But the reality is a Biden voter in Alabama is not going to get Biden elected. By the same token, we don't hear them say it to Trump voters in California. But we know in a two-horse race that Donald Trump is not going to win California. And so the media sort of applies a double standard. They're more than happy to tell voters they're wasting their votes when voting for independent or third-party candidates, but they don't apply the same rigor when talking to members of the duopoly about their voting. But that was what our race was about in 2014. And I said this in my concession speech. At the end of the day, my goal was to make sure partisans everywhere knew that they couldn't go to Washington and just hide behind their party label. They actually had to solve problems for the American people. And that's what that race was about. That's what we were trying to accomplish. I remember talking to a Republican voter, and he said to me, Greg, everything that you've said makes sense to me, but we need a Republican Senate.
I know.
And by the way,
but like I just got to do the tribe thing.
But I had the conversation with him. So I said to him, and by the way, in the last poll we did before the election, almost 2/3 of Pat Roberts voters said, we think Greg's a better candidate, but we need a Republican Senate. That was the message that got sold quite effectively in Kansas. And so I said to him, well, can I ask you why? And he said, well, because we're going to rein in entitlements. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? George Bush tried to do that in 2005 with a Republican House and a Republican Senate, didn't get to first base. And he said, well, we're going to prevent Obama from appointing judges. And I said, I understand that, but when Harry Reid changed the filibuster rule for the appeals court, Mitch McConnell went to the floor of the Senate and said, why are we doing this? We've approved 99% of your judges. So your sole reason for wanting a Republican Senate is to prevent 1% of the Obama-appointed judges from holding gavels on the federal bench. At the same time, the things we spend so much money on, Social Security, Medicare, our interest on the debt, are not subject to annual appropriations. 70% of the budget grows in an environment of gridlock. It doesn't get smaller. And I think what you really want is smarter, more efficient government. And you're not going to get that with gridlock. If you want smarter, more efficient government, you have to send a message to both parties that they need to work together. And the only way to send that message in this race is to vote for me. And he said to me, well, gosh, can you put that on a TV ad? And I said, well, the 2.5-minute TV ad doesn't really work. Yeah. But ultimately, the whole underpinning, we needed a Republican Senate, really just reinforces this notion that they don't need to get anything done. They just need to be from the right party, and they need to make you afraid of the other party. And I tell people, I don't think we have strong partisans anymore. I think we principally have strong anti-partisans. They don't love their own party. They just hate and fear the other party so much that they support their party. And that's just, again, that's a bridge to nowhere.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.